factor. They constantly surprise us, both in amazing ways and not so much. We're Ben and Syya, and welcome to the Gnaw on This Business Bites podcast. This show is all about real-life things we all deal with every day, how they relate to business, and how to make some sense out of our daily chaos. Welcome to the show.
Happy birthday, Ben.
And welcome to another episode of Gnaw on This Business Bites. My name is Ben and this is Syya. And let's look at it this way. Let's get rid of analysis paralysis. Stop mucking around and let's do something. It is amazing to me how many organizations go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, do reports, create these big, beautiful binders, and they sit there and collect dust in the corner. They say that 70% of change management initiatives fail. And the reason they fail is because people get caught up in analysis paralysis. They're waiting for this thing to be perfect. They're waiting for the world to be perfect, for this perfect situation, to have the perfect amount of cash, to have the perfect employees, to have the perfect scenario in order to move forward. And guess what? It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. The world is continually in flux. We've talked about this before, boys and girls. And we need to move forward. We need to sit there and say, you know what? We're never going to have all the information. We're never going to have a perfect situation. We're never going to be ready. Sometimes we just need to push the button, launch the website, launch the product, hire somebody, fire somebody. But we need to actually do it, because if all we do is sit there and talk, all we're going to do is frustrate people. We're going to frustrate people within our organization. We're going to frustrate our clients. We're going to frustrate everybody. And that leads to mistrust. It leads to disengagement. And it leads to people sitting there going, you know what? I'm going somewhere else. So Syya, let's gnaw on this.
Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. I just had to say that because
I know.
Look, man.
Or at least we're dust on the binder.
Exactly. When you said dust on that binder, that song instantly popped in my head. And because there's there's a meaninglessness, right, to a lot of this activity, of life. And what a way to think about this, right? If you're going to analyze things, I understand. If you're not a risk taker, fine. Understand the benefits, the values, the cost if you're going to do something outside the norm, right? I get it. But if it's getting to the point where you just do so much of the research and then do absolutely nothing, then you're no better than when you started. And what a waste of fracking time and energy. Waste of energy. Who wants that? I'm lazy.
And money.
I am lazy. I do not want to waste my time on things I do not have benefit from or do not get some level of enjoyment. I mean, look, maybe there are some of those analysts that really get off on it or get their excitement out of it. Okay, that's fine, I guess. But no, please. You and I, we help folks create content that's relevant for their business, right? That increases communication in a way that they can adapt it, make a better team work together more cohesively, make your organization more resilient to change. I get it. It is amazing to me how timid people can be at times. Let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
Certain personality types are more inclined to risk take. I am one of those personality types that has either no fear or I am just incredibly ignorant to fear, risk.
You don't mind walking off the cliff because you're convinced the parachute is strapped to your back. Whether it is or it's not, you're comfortable enough knowing that that parachute is probably strapped to my back, and one way or another, I'm going to be
There's
fine.
probably a puffy little cloud along the way as I drop drastically.
Absolutely.
Maybe a tree branch here that'll slow that momentum down. But yeah, I have always had that philosophy that, you know what? You will never know until you get there. And 99.99% of the time, your fears, your anxiety, your doubt is nowhere near of what the actual experience is. If anything, you made it bigger than it actually is, which is why.
Always.
Do you like roller coasters? I love roller coasters, but I gotta tell you, I get excited for the anticipation of that line more than the actual ride itself. I can't enjoy roller coaster rides completely because of that.
Really, it's interesting. Okay, let's digress into roller coasters for 3 seconds. To me, it's the anticipation and the jump. It's that going up the first hill, knowing that there's that drop coming off of there. And let's leave it at there. But it's we need to sit there and say, okay, let's bring this back and say we need strategy. We can't have ready, shoot, aim. Okay, ready, shoot, aim doesn't work either.
Okay.
In all cases, there has to be some strategy. There has to sit there and say, okay, we've got a goal. This is what we're trying to do. Here's where we are. This is where we want to be. All right, we need to build a plan. All right, go. But the problem is a lot of people miss the go.
Yeah.
Or they take way too much time analyzing, reanalyzing, rebudgeting, and refocusing, and putting another report on it, and hiring a new set of consultants to come in and tell them what they already know or justify why they shouldn't go ahead in the first place. We spend an enormous amount of time, and we actually abdicate responsibility to a million other people for something where most of us just have to sit there and say, you know what? This is where we're going. We're going to jump. You know what? We may end up having to go left. We may have to go right. We may have to go underneath. We may have to go right, but keep the goal in mind and we'll be okay. It's never perfect out of the gate. Why do you think Microsoft is on version, Microsoft 11, Windows 11 version 1.24724822347? You know what? There's always going to be another revolution coming up. And we need to sit there and say, all right, we're going to make adjustments on the fly. But if we don't take that first step, we'll never be in a position where we can make those adjustments.
Okay, let's I like my roller coaster analogy. Okay, but
let's go back to the roller coaster. Hands up. Hands up. We're in the roller coaster. Hands up.
Okay.
Okay.
Woo! Okay.
Okay. Woo.
But here's what's interesting.
Gotta love centrifugal force.
Oh. Okay, shall we talk about centrifugal and centripetal force? I really miss my spinning rides. Okay, that's it. Now you're making me. All right, you're making me squirrel.
Back to the roller coaster.
Okay. That's a new.
And this is why we need analysis paralysis.
This is a new topic, young man. Amusement parks and roller coaster rides are centripetal type rides considered roller coaster. Okay, anyway, so here's where my brain's at. Okay. Do you remember, for those that are like on Disney folks of Florida, Anaheim, we're at Tokyo, yes. Paris. Disneyland has that Autobahn, Autopia, right?
Of course.
So you're driving, it's got like a center aisle, and it's got like little sized bumpers on the side, but it's got the center aisle.
Yeah, you're locked in. You're locked in. You ain't going anywhere other than forward.
Well, it's interesting to me because as a child, you're like, I'm gunning it and I'm woohoo. And you're like bouncing off the center rail. You're like breaking things and all that stuff, right? But you're driving. You're like, I'm driving. I kind of feel like that child innocence, that excitement of like, ooh, I'm driving a car. I'm like, I remember being way too short. And I'm like, by the way, full disclosure,
I remember sitting on my dad's lap and driving that car.
See, I don't think they allow that anymore because one stupid lawsuit and there you go.
Oh, of course not. They probably didn't allow it then either.
Well, look, we grew up in a different time where they just threw us in the back seat and let us like fly around everywhere. So
seatbelt.
What's a seatbelt, right? They strap it on top of the station wagon. Anyway,
okay, you're getting off course again. We need to sit there and drive the plan. Drive the
plan. So here's a funny thing about that. So you've got that innocence as a child, like, oh, you pulled me back. Yes. Good job. Anyway, but I think it's interesting is you still see adults and you could tell how the way they treat that ride by the way they drive it. So there's some that are like, I'm never touching the middle rail. And then you see others like, I'm going to take race car lines. And you can only go so far on it. And some are like, I'm just going to leisurely go here. And you're like, I'm going to rear end you, Grandpa. Go, go, go. And I think that's personality types. So this feeds into what I'm going to ask you is, what if you're a personality type that's risk averse? How would you address it or communicate that with someone that's like, look, I get it. driving that Autobahn Autopia car sounds like a lot of fun, but it's not my jam. I'm going to go 2 miles an hour and then slow everyone down behind. So how do you nudge them along?
I think we need both. I think we need the people that are risk adverse, and we need the people that are, just like you and me, that are sitting there going, okay, jump and then we'll figure it out. And I think those make the best partners. They're going to kill each other at times, but what they're going to do is they're going to play off each other's strengths. And somebody that is completely and absolutely risk adverse probably doesn't own their own company and probably never will. They are going to be in a position where they're going to go work for somebody else. They're going to have a job to do. My job is to be that analyst. My job is to be doing this. You know what? It's somebody else's decision to take what I interpret and do something with it. My job is to give them the best information possible. And there's nothing wrong with those people. Having those people on your payroll or having those people on your team is phenomenal, because they're going to see things that you're never going to see. Okay? But you also need to have somebody in a leadership position that says, you know what? We've got the majority of the data. We have enough data to get to do the minimal viable product. Okay, let's launch the minimal viable product. It's not perfect. It's certainly not even close to perfect, but it's something we can show a client. And it's something we can sit there and say, here's something that we're looking at. It's in the beta stage. But if you leave it to the people that are going to be the engineers of the world and the analysts of the world, and my son is one of them, you know what? They're going to wait till something is perfect before it goes out the door. And if we wait to perfect, we're never going to see it. Those wonderful, amazing things that these people create will never see the light of day, because they're waiting for, all the buttons to work properly. They're waiting for for the right processor to come along in order to be able to drive the technology that they're looking for, and realize that, you know what, by the time we actually get this thing to market, it's going to be a year and a half of further R&D. But you know what, the technology is going to evolve, and we're going to evolve this product in the meantime. But in the meantime, we've got customers that are excited about this and have written us purchase orders to be able to fund this, instead of us funding it out of our own back pockets.
You bring up an interesting point here, is getting your client involved, right? In the Absolutely. Conception of it, to help maybe nudge it along. Because usually when we are trying to do some kind of change, it's largely because our client's asking for it. So again, I just want to, this analysis paralysis thing, all right? I see a lot of our clients, again, we're content creators and producers and all that good stuff. I find it fascinating that there are those that are still very hesitant to put themselves up and out there, particularly on social media. I get it. You don't want to be canceled. I get it. You don't want to get fired if you say the wrong things. But I would say that type of mentality probably was more prevalent 10 years ago. Today, I think most smart, do you like my caveats? Smart businesses, smart corporations are okay with their employees creating a brand that exudes credibility, trust, because it only enhances their brand to know, hey, we hire amazing people, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. That you could say, I trust my company's vision and they're credible, so therefore I don't mind representing it or hitching my wagon to their branding as well. Why do you think, though, that even the marketing departments of a lot of these businesses that I'm talking to, why do you think they still hesitate, especially around social media, of putting themselves out there when they actually have a lot more to win and gain, but yet still do not?
Two things. 5% of the people on social media produce original content. I think even today, that number is not that far off. Maybe we were at 6 or 8%, but the vast majority of people out there do not put out original content. They may share stuff. They may grab something and put it out there, but they may not ever comment on it. They may just take a post and reshare it, and that's their social sharing. Or the vast majority of people don't even comment on somebody else's post. They'll put a heart or they'll put a like, but they don't actually sit there and put a comment. I think in a lot of cases, we're people are afraid to cross that line. People are afraid that, oh my God, I may not look smart. I'm not as smart as other people are out there. My opinion isn't worthy. None of this is true, people. None of this is true. We all have opinions. We all have a place where we've come from. We all have a different perspective. And the more we can communicate that, and the more that we can create actual dialogue with people and say, hey, listen, you say X, I say Y, maybe there's some middle ground here. And it's getting rid of the black and white and into the shades of gray. But we live in a world where we've become so black and white. Everybody's afraid, as you said, to be canceled. Everybody's afraid to be fired. Everybody's afraid of the risk factor. And that's why there's analysis paralysis, is because people are more afraid about what could happen, than actually seeing and trying it and actually seeing what may happen. And I think that we need, as a society, to realize that a little bit of risk in our life, doing something every day that kind of scares us a little bit, and pushes our envelopes a little bit, is not such a horrible thing. If we live a life within the lines and we never touch the corners, we're never going to reach our own potential. I agree. And I think that's where we need to look at it. And I think it comes down to, we need to sit there and say, look, I personally would rather ask for forgiveness than permission. And sometimes it gets me in trouble. Sometimes it gets my wrist slapped. Sometimes it gets me yelled at. And you know what? I'm okay with that because I learned from all of it. But other people don't have that ability to take that type of criticism and just shrug it off and say, oh, okay, I'll never do that one again, and move on.
I think it's a great question to pose to everyone, because we're running long, young man. I know we always get excitable on this.
Yes, we are.
So here's the thing. What do you guys do if you are in a situation where you're maybe overanalyzing? What's causing you to do that? And what are you doing to overcome it? I'd love to see that in comments. So that's my piece.
And comment through the week on this one. We'll come back to the comments and we'll respond to all this. So let's leave it there. I think that's a great question to, for everybody to get there. What makes you scared, and why don't you jump?
And what are you doing to overcome it?
So I'm Ben.
I'm Syya.
And we'll see you soon.
Hey. Thanks for listening to another episode of Not On This, Business Bites. If you liked what you heard, we most humbly ask that you like, share, and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to communicate more effectively within your organization, contact Ben at yourbrandmarketing.com or me at brilliantbeammedia.com. We can help you build your community, brand awareness, and personality through digital content and podcasting. We cannot wait to hear from you. So see you next week for another episode of Not On This, Business Bites.